Hello and welcome to the Monday night Final Fantasy IV free enterprise race, and we've got a doozy for you tonight. If you like spoony bards, you're in the right place because we have an Edward run. Not only are we all starting with Edward here, but all the characters that are going to be available in the game are going to be Edward. So, oh yeah, we're real. We're real tonight. And joining me on commentary, I'm Rex Rowell. I've got JDP. JDP, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to what I imagine is going to be the smoothest sailing race we have ever done.
Oh, without a doubt. So, yeah, if you see right now, you can see there's a bunch of flags on the stream. Most of them are no characters, so no Cecil, no Kane, all of that. But as far as the actual game itself goes, some of the other flags we've got on here, we've got JI, so we've got the Japanese items in here, along with K1, so no like deep shenanigans for key items tonight. And I think that's probably pretty fair since we're dealing with all Edward tonight, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the most important flag that runners of this seed are going to be looking out for is the spoon flag, which means that Edward can equip a little something extra if they're lucky enough to find it.
Yeah, the spoon is definitely equipable by Edward, and it's a very powerful weapon. And we see it looks like we're starting off with the Baron key, so that'll give them another overworld option. Of course, finding access to the underworld is going to be key. Whether they are able to find a magma key would be ideal, but if they've got to face a hook with a team of Edwards, fighting that Rubicante spot might be a problem. We'll see.
Oh yeah, they're going to probably have to do a little easier stuff early on just to get levels, just because Edward is very fragile early on.
Well, we do have T4S3, so that means treasures can be really powerful, good stuff. I mean, a lot of them they'll just have to sell because Edward can't equip a lot of it, like we see a heroine shirt. Not quite, in a lot of seeds, a very useful item, but in this one it's just fodder for cash. But with the S3 flag, they can get lots of good stuff, including really potent Japanese attack items like you see in Baron Town. They've got Boreas for sale, which casts a pretty powerful Ice 2 spell, and that can be used in lieu of other weapons for Eddie early in the seed.
I think with Edward, you're kind of hoping to find, if you can't get the spoon, obviously, you're kind of hoping to find Artemis arrows and Artemis bows, because that'll be his main damage dealer outside of that spoon.
Question, is pass in shop in these flags? No, we have the PI, so pass is a key item.
Another thing with the shops, although they have the Japanese items available, they do not have sirens available, and that is going to make the late game grind a bit more difficult.
Yeah, no egg farming on this one, so we will see what that'll mean. So why don't we go ahead and introduce our runners while they're doing some early looting. We've got 4 featured runners. I think we've got about 17 or 18 people running overall, so pretty good turnout for this daunting Edward run tonight. But we've got Smape D, Silverfire, Dr. Cossack, and Kate Sith 2 all running tonight. So we're wishing them the best of luck.
Indeed. And I might be mistaken in saying this, but I think this might be Dr. C's first restream.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but if people want to be restreamed, I think it's good to give everyone an opportunity who wants it.
Yeah, everybody deserves a spot on the chopping block, so to speak.
And we see Silverfire going into Edward, talking to Edward in the bed. With the flag set that we have today, we have a full free lunch. So that does include a free key item that's available in Toria from Edward, which is another Edward. So we've got a lot of Edwards going on today.
And we have the twin harps, so everybody's favorite musical interlude is right there on the table. And I mean, with Edward, you almost kind of got to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're quite ready at level 5, but at some point they'll probably be heading down there.
You say that, but if it's King and Queen Evelyn, they might actually be able to get through it.
I think King Edwin's Fire 2 still might be able to do the 60 HP to take out Edward, but
That is fair, unless they happen to find decent armor along the way.
yeah. Decent armor. We do have, with the T4, we've got wild chests. Things can happen. We could find adamant armor in chests tonight, so we'll see.
Yeah, you can find quite a few if you're really lucky. And I mean, with only Edwards, they're not really going to have a whole lot armor-wise to really write home about. So you almost want to bank on finding a couple.
We see both Gaia drums and lights available for sale in the Toria Pass shop. The life potions are a useful grind tool as well as, revive tool for dead Edwards. And the Gaia drum casts a quake spell, a bit lower power than you'd see Palom cast it for, obviously, but still a very useful item to clear out mobs of enemies, like bosses that have multiple characters in it early in the fight.
It'll definitely help you through some of the early bosses until you find your footing as well.
Yeah, and as you said, finding something like an adamant or an Artemis bow and Artemis arrows is nice, but until you find something that's going to be a good attack, like a good bow and arrow or a really good dagger that he can use, you're going to be relying on those Japanese attack items.
I think I just spied Silverfire finding the Artemis bow while looting the basement of Dancian Castle.
Yeah, and that is the most powerful bow in the game, and that's going to be a big boon to one of his Edwards, at least. Another weapon that would be nice to find early is the Dancing Dagger. Anyone who's familiar with vanilla speedrun of Final Fantasy IV knows that Edward with the Dancing Dagger is quite powerful. So we'll see if they're able to find one of those.
Indeed, and if you happen to get the Assassin's Dagger, that might also help with some of the bosses that wouldn't have the boss bit. So, in that case, you'd want to have it for something like the 3 Dark Imps and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, that can make something like the 3 Dark Imps a very trivial fight, for sure. So we see Silverfire heading down the Antlion Cave. There's a lot of chests here, which is going to be a combination of, if they can find decent equipment that Edward can actually use, that would be very nice, of course. But if not, they can find some good equipment that can be sold to finance all these Japanese items, like those Gaia drums don't grow on trees.
Additionally, there is a siren in Dancian Castle, so that is one egg fight if you save it that long.
And we see Kate Seth 2 going up and picking up an extra Edward. Since we have the full free lunch, we do have an extra character in Dancian, 2 in Mysidia, and 1 on Mount Ordeals. So as soon as these players want to, they can get the full complement of 5 Edwards in their party.
Oh, man, you get no better party than 5 Edwards when you're running free enterprise.
Well, I'll definitely say in this seed, that would be the best option that you have, is 5 Edwards.
Ooh, D lunars right off the bat. With the attack items I have, it shouldn't be too bad, but that could be bad in a certain spots if you have certain party members. This one I think they're okay with.
Yeah, as long as they've properly stocked up on either their Boreases, their Gaia drums, their Thor Rages, big bombs. Oh, we do see Elven bows and Samurai bows for sale. Those are, they're not Artemis quality, but those are the next tier down of bows that Edward can use. So if they can find some arrows to go along with it, then Smapty might have some good offensive firepower from his Edwards.
It looks like Syl got the Luca key for their troubles. Not the greatest item to find at this point in the game, but it could be of use later if other people don't grab it.
Yeah, it could be. There's definitely a possibility of an important key item being at the end of there, but it's also without access to buying sirens in shops. The fighting the doors in the Luca cave is one option for a grind at the end of the game.
Indeed. It looks like Dr. C is fighting the CPU and gets past it. A little bit of a dangerous strat using the attack all item, because if you didn't do enough, he could one-shot you. But it looks like he got through okay.
Yeah, that's where being aware of the how much hit points the bosses may have and how much your attack items are going to do can make that a lot more comfortable using a strategy like that. Looks like Dr. Cossack got the tower key as the reward. And so that'll make any potential trips up the Tower of Babel in the underworld a lot more, well, I guess, like friendly, so that they only have to go once would be one way of putting it.
It certainly will help out later, but right now, when you have no path to the underground, that's not the item you want to see right now. But for all we know, the path to the underground might be behind that Twin Heart people aren't quite ready to go for yet.
Right, I think especially with HP values so low in the beginning of the game, seeing these runners go to Antlion, go to Babul, maybe the Baron Inn or possibly Mount Ordeals, just to get those levels might be something that we see there.
It looks like Smapety has broken his screen, but I'm sure Dem's quite on that.
Yeah, we do have the great Demerin 2 doing the restreaming tonight, as well as PMA KFAL doing the tracking. So big shout outs to them for helping out tonight.
Two of the best.
We see Dr. Cossack is heading over to Mysidia. We'll see if he decides to pick up the other Edwards. The other thing is, like, a lot of people aren't used to running these no free lunch seeds. We'll see how many of them actually go up to Mysidia and get those characters.
Yeah, I think especially with this setup, with how weak the party is going to be early on, you're going to see a lot of people sort of feeling their way around, not quite comfortable with what they might normally do, hoping to find that one key item that takes them down a path that they feel can more smoothly be done, I suppose is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, and I think personally that getting more characters in a seed like this is good. I mean, you're not really losing out on anything by having more characters because the experience is shared evenly among everybody. Like, it's not split up. Everybody gets the same amount.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can't dupe items, but if you find a couple of good bows and arrows, Edward will kill stuff significantly fast just due to his speed.
And speaking of stuff, looks like we found some Artemis arrows for sale in the Mysidia weapon shop. So that's going to be... They're the best arrows in the game. And so being able to get a bunch of Edwards equipped with Artemis arrows, they do extra damage against lots of different things, and most notably dragons.
Oh yeah, I've had my runs where Edward with the Artemis bow and arrow is actually out-damaging Cecil with the crystal sword, so a lot of people don't give Edward enough credit. He's far better than you might think at first glance.
K2 is picking up those 2 extra Edwards there, and I believe that'll be a full complement of Edwards.
A full band, you might say.
Yeah, this is definitely the Backstreet Boys of the Final Fantasy world.
It looks like Silverfire is starting to dip into Baron. They might go for it. I mean, I think personally, I would probably go for music first, just because I think the boss probably would be a little bit simpler to go past than trying to get 2 bosses down. But Syl knows what they're doing, so I gotta trust the judgment.
Yeah, there's that, and Silverfire might just be wanting to check the shops, finding those good things like the charm arrows, I think, are what they found there. Oh no, they must have been somewhere else. But just having the variety, like I think the lit arrows were there, and having those elemental arrows can be situationally really good.
If you find Kegnazo at a really bad spot, lit arrows aren't bad to have.
Yeah, and the back half of the element fight, or Dr. Luge, second form, there's a number of places. And it looks like Silverfire's going for the Baron Inn instead of the Baron Castle first, going up against Antlion, which, if you've got those attack items, shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, especially in the first spot, it only has about 400 health. The second spot is a much tougher fight.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Depending on what it is, might still be okay. Looks like a lunar boss. Ooh, Ogopogo. Well, you do have the lit arrows. Might not be too bad, but still not an easy fight at all. It looks like Dr. C is going after D Lunar and is about to get his own Luka Key.
Meanwhile, maybe getting those extra Edwards.
I think it's still going to be a little bit of feeling out before people get going in a certain direction. You're going to see a lot of the same places being checked, at least till enough levels are down where there might be some bravery in going to these more dangerous places.
Silverfire is doing a pretty good job against this Ogopogo, but that physical attack is just one-shotting anyone who it hits. But able to take down the beast. I think that was very well handled by Silverfire, especially at these really low levels.
Ooh, the package. Now here's an interesting one. With one of the flags we have on tonight, the flag, instead of fire, if you were to turn that in, a random sprite is going to be what actually destroys Mist Village. And going to see what that is, it's very popular, but you might not see that too often, especially with this where 5 Edwards is very easy to get to. And you don't have to kill D-Mist for a key item.
Right, I don't think we're going to see anyone turn in the package. It would be nice to show off that hub flag, but I don't think there's a lot of need for it in this one. It would just take time.
Unfortunate, but everybody can kill the citizens of Mist on their own time, and I highly recommend it. And Kate Sith is about to get their Luka Key. LQ Flurry 14 pointing out the amusement of seeing the Edward sprite destroying Mist on an all Edward seed.
I think that should be like almost like on this run. I think like everything that could be random should be Edward.
Absolutely. There is a chance, if we're lucky, of getting Edward Mus when we go to Zeromus later.
So we've got our merry band of bards here. It's just fun to when you see the menu open up and you see 5 profile pics of Edward there. There's just something very fun about that.
It looks like
climbing the first to climb Mount Ordeals, and they're going to get their last Edward as the free character on Ordeals. But trying this instead of going into the Baron Castle.
that mute dagger they just found could be very invaluable. If they run across a Shura, if you can lifelock a Shura while using that mute dagger, you're going to be doing decent damage.
Yeah, the mute dagger is definitely a useful weapon for Eddie. Also does very good damage against the Mega Sisters.
Absolutely. If it does magic, you will stab it. Now, the downside to doing the Ordeals play is that is 3 bosses to get through. And if you run into something like Golbez or Valvalis, that could be a bad time.
That's true, but the counter argument is it's also a good thing because you can get those experience points and get a few more, maybe a couple hundred HP on Eddie. Oh, Eddie's biggest nemesis ever, the Water Hag.
That is a fair call. I mean, if they really need levels, there was at least one siren found in chest. Now, I mean, you probably want to hold off on using that till you get underground. But if you're desperate for levels, using it on Mount Ordeals, killing the 2 Liliths, it's enough to give you a level or 2.
It is nice that Eddie will get to see his beloved Anna here on this scene.
At least temporarily.
I mean, I guess if they climbed Damsian, the runners could have seen Anna's dead sprite for a moment.
Just Edward reliving the tragedy over and over again on this seed. Push have to pay respects to Anna.
Kate's now going into Fabul, going to be facing those lunar Ds, while Silverfire sees it looks like a Nylon Z, but it's the elements. This is one where I think those Artemis arrows are going to come in handy too.
Absolutely. Elements I find is easier to get through usually than actual Ruby Kent.
Oh, I totally agree with you there. Silverfire pulling out a Grimoire, getting the Mist Dragon, which was a bit unfortunate because it's damage based on HP. Not exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, I think if you're going to use a Grimoire, you're hoping for a Leviathan or a Bahamut.
Yeah, I mean, even like a Shiva would have been nice there, though.
Yeah, it looks like Kate Sith having no issues getting past the CPU. I believe that gets that gets him the tower key.
That's correct, the tower key.
I feel like whoever happens to get the hook or magma key first is going to pull way ahead of everybody, just based on, you're still in that point where you don't know quite where to go.
Well, if it's the magma key, I'll agree with you. If it's the hook, they might still hunt for that magma key. We'll see.
That is true. But for all we know, the magma key could be on the moon.
That is very true. And if this is a hook seed and they have to fight that Ruby contact spot, that could be a tough challenge for a party of all Edwards.
Just a sand ruby. That pretty much can be filed right into the garbage in this particular flag set.
Well, I might have missed this when other people looted Fabul Castle, but I just saw on Kate's screen they pick up a ribbon. Very nice piece of defensive equipment that Edward can equip.
Absolutely. I can never remember if the ribbon can also deflect Gobez's Shadow's auto kill, or if it's just the adamant armor.
I believe that the ribbon can. We'll see if somebody in chat can confirm that. And we see the Mom Bomb fight, and another use of a Grimoire, and Indra will definitely take care of those little bombs.
And I believe Baka at Shinobi has implied that the ribbon does work.
Yeah.
And just real quick, if you're looking at the flags, you probably see the letters WSOFE. That stands for the World Series of Free Enterprise. It's an event coming up in the next month or two. And there's going to be lots of different events. One of them is this Edward Percent Seed, and I encourage everybody, sign on up, give it your best shot during the qualifiers. You never know if you're going to make it in. And even if you don't, isn't the fun the real point of the journey?
Yeah, and the website for Free Enterprise has all of the World Series of Free Enterprise flags set as presets, so you don't need to memorize what the flags are. You can just choose, hey, I want to do an 80% run, so I choose that, and you can have it preset those flags. So you've got it right, and you can do any practice or races that you want to do with that. It's all there for you.
And probably for the best, because I reckon a lot of people are going to want to practice those catalyte seeds before the actual event.
So I think the only places we haven't seen yet are Baron Castle and the Twin Harp location. Now I'm sure chat is going to want us to check that Twin Harp location.
Absolutely, but it looks like Dr. C is about to check that Baron location. So we'll be down to one pretty soon.
And since we saw the water hag on top of Mount Ordeals, this blue cloak that Dr. Cossack's fighting is going to be the Fabul Gauntlet.
An annoying fight to find, because it's never really that hard unless it's in every particular spot, but it always consumes time, even if you're just holding A in one shot and everything. But in this particular seed, they might have no choice. They all might have to go through it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, if you're in a race situation and you see that if you've engaged in the fight with the Fabul Gauntlet, you're hoping that the item that's behind this is required, because you want to make sure that everybody else is going to have to go through with what you just went through with.
Oh, yeah.
This is Silverfire following Dr. Cossack now, also heading down through the old waterway to get to that Fabul Gauntlet fight in Baron Castle.
I submit there is nothing sadder than doing the Fabul Gauntlet fight only to get a ninja shirt as the reward.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I'll give you that.
And I think if this ends up being the magma key, it's gonna put Syl and Dr. C pretty far ahead from the other two, as I don't think they've even thought of sniffing Baron quite yet. But I mean, with so many limited places to check, I don't think they're going to be that far behind, though.
Right, and it would have been. I think it would have been different if there was like either Antlion or Fabul, or even the free item in Toria gave the Magna Key. I think then we'd be looking at like really vastly divergent things. But right now, like, Smitty and Keatsith are going through places that we have seen before. Like, we're not seeing anything brand new right now. So that they will all converge and basically be in the same place pretty shortly. I don't think they'll be too far behind. I agree with you.
I think once we get a Magma Key or a Darkness Crystal, that's when you're going to start seeing people diverge off in different directions. And Supremacy adds to the sadness by saying he got an iron arrow before after fighting the Fabul Gauntlet, which probably is as sad as you're gonna get.
Well, I was gonna say Black Sword, but Iron Arrows works too. Dr. Cossack, after defeating the Gauntlet, looted some chests in Baron. Looks like was thinking about going back to save, but now is just saying, no, I'm gonna go for it. We'll see.
Man, if they're lucky enough to find the evil wall with this party, they've got a pretty easy way through, but I mean, we haven't seen it yet.
People defending the Black Sword in chat. Black Sword is useful if you haven't transformed Cecil into a paladin.
I mean, Black Sword has its uses, but let's slow down, everyone, alright?
Hey, I do love the screen yelling spoon at me. That is one of my absolute joys in Final Fantasy IV.
Yes, but you have to keep Cecil as a Dark Knight to use it, and I mean, I think if you're going to be using Cecil, you're trying to get him paladinized as quickly as you can.
We see it looks like original flavor Mylon is sitting on the throne with his army of guests, and Dr. Cossack using a vampire to restore some HP, but it looks like he's getting punked pretty bad by the Lit 1 counterattacks that Mylon has.
Oh yeah, he's potentially in bad shape. He does have a wall on, so that will defend Adwark at least from recompensance. But there it goes. Unfortunate white. You hate to see it happen.
Yeah, and since Dr. Cossack didn't go back to save after defeating the gauntlet, now he's just exiting Baron Castle. Doesn't want to do it again. I'm guessing that he's probably going to go and check the Twin Harp to see if that boss is a little bit more favorable to him than Mylon one. Meanwhile, Silver is now fighting that.
Checking Twin Harp, good for the chat, but if Sil gets a magma key here, that is going to be a choice he regrets.
Right. I mean, this is one of those things where if it turns out to be a pointless item, then Dr. C is making the right choice, just getting on out of there. But if it's required and it's going to be looming, no matter what, it's going to loom in the back of Dr. Cossack's mind for the rest of this run. So,
especially since we don't know which boss is at Twin Harp yet. I mean, you could go over there, run into Valvalis, and just not really be able to pierce through the defenses very well.
Yeah, hopefully those Artemis arrows and the Artemis bow from Dancing can really help with that, but it could definitely be difficult.
I would assume he'd be fine with the Artemis bow and arrows, but I've had that equipped a few times and it still does almost nothing in certain spots, so it is a roll of the dice.
Looks like Silverfire is also having some troubles with this fight, but still could be getting there. We'll see.
I just got through. So we are going to see
body. Yeah. So Silver a little bit more successful with that fight than Cossack was. And they'll be rewarded with another Edward that they probably will not take into the party. And then
truly the best reward.
The Igdward is not joining, and we'll see what Silver gets for the key item.
Quick shout-outs to the Silly Flag. With the newer versions of Free Enterprise, you can name your characters in advance, and you can have a number next to the name just to keep them apart, or you can throw on the Silly Flag. It'll swap around certain letters, and you get really weird names, such as that Idward. I personally play with Silly on every time.
I like the Silly name distinguishers as well. Well, we find a glass helmet in the bottom of the magnetic cave for Dr. Cossack. Really interesting item there. Ooh. But speaking of interesting one, the item that Silverfire just got is very interesting indeed. We have a spoon.
I think Dr. C is going to be very sad later when he stumbles across that.
Though it is not a required item. So
I mean, not required for progression. I think you'll probably want it against Aromas, though.
It's a very useful item. It's situationally, the Artemis bow arrows on some foes is going to be better than the spoon, and the spoon's going to be better against a lot of other ones. So, but
looks like Dr. C is about to initiate music time, so it might be time to get quiet time as we listen to whatever jaunty tune the game has in store for us. For those unfamiliar, Free Enterprise, one of the little Easter eggs is when you do this part, instead of the harp music, it could be a random song from many, many games. I think there's over 150 currently in the game, but let's listen.
Okay, I'm gonna resume doing commentary, but we do get the sweet music. We see Octomam in this spot, which can be a difficult fight. This is one where like the physical attacks are basically all Octomam does, but since Edward has such a low HP threshold, it can be tough. Luckily, they found that glass helmet recently, and if they equip that, that has a really high physical defense, so that can really help an Edward survive a fight like this.
Absolutely. And if those of you who might not recognize the music, this is Quenia's theme from Final Fantasy IX. I believe the blue mage of that particular game. So it's a nice jaunty tune. But yeah, there's so many from so many different games. It's worth checking it out every time. You might even say it's a crowd pleaser. And Dr. C, getting past the boss, we're going to see what the key item is here.
It looks like the Earth Crystal is the reward there, so that is going to be progression. Can now climb the Tower of Zot.
But most importantly, he can get 2 more Edwards for his party.
Yep, there are 2 more Edwards at the top of the.
It looks like we're getting an encore from Silverfire.
Yeah, that little harp that Silverfire just spoke to is new in this version of Free Enterprise, where you can actually, like, if you don't recognize the music and you want to know what it is, or you think you recognize it, but you're not quite sure, like, where do I remember that from? And then you can check it out right there. It'll give you the name of the song and the game that it's from.
I assume with that spoon, Sil isn't going to have too much trouble getting past this.
Probably not. And also, Sil has the extra levels from that fight against Mylon that Dr. Cossack wasn't able to get. So Silver's a bit more beefed up right now, and Dr. Cossack didn't have too much problem with it anyway.
And Smapty just got past the very fight all the same. Gonna get his Earth Crystal. I think we're gonna see a lot of people diving Earth all at once pretty soon.
Yeah, we've got our runners all converging as we predicted. Kate Sith is trying Baron Castle right now to see if he can beat Mylon after the Football Gauntlet as well.
It's looking like Dr. C is doing a little shopping percent real quick before they make the dive. Probably a fair call. And hopefully Kate Sith will be able to get past the 2 fights here. I imagine they'll be okay. Mylon's probably going to be the biggest trouble, but looking at levels, I think he'll be alright.
Yeah, a couple more levels than Dr. Cossack had at least. So. But yeah, shopping, it's nice because you can dump all your extra item or equipment that Edward can't equip and get all that money. And now it's going to deck him up with some more Artemis arrows there.
Yeah, it definitely brings about a question. When you're running with only Edwards, how much looting do you do? Because on the one hand, you can get a lot of money, but on the other hand, every chest you open is a second you're losing.
That is I think that's a balancing act in every, or in most seeds of a Free Enterprise, but it is especially interesting in these flags because you're going to need items basically throughout the run, whether you get Bacchus wines later and coffins maybe for certain ones, the attack items, arrows. There's always things you need to buy. Cure 3s, life potions. So money, if you spend all your money on Artemis arrows now, then you're gonna need to open more chests to get more loot to sell for Tier 3s later. So in this particular flag set, I think you need to open more than you might think at first glance, because you're like, well, Edward can't equip anything, so I'm not going to find a lot of good equipment for him. But you do need to have money in order to buy the items that are required. Well, maybe not strictly required, but very, very useful.
Absolutely, and it looks like Smapety is the first one scaling the Tower of Zot, running into the Flame Dog fight.
One of
be
his Edwards
dangerous.
conveniently hide it, I say. Come on.
It only does half HP damage, so it gets through it without too much trouble, but that could be dangerous if you're not prepared. I've had many a run, and because I just had finished walking through the Fey March, forgot to heal, opened that chest, and well, doom befell me. But since he is already in the tower, if this ends up being the magma key, it could give him a pretty good lead while everybody's preparing for the next step.
Yeah, I believe this is going to have to be either the magma key or the hook, because there's no other places to check on the overworld, unless I'm forgetting one that's really obvious. But I think we've seen everywhere else.
Even so, if it's that hook, I mean, it's still not going to be free.
Right. Excuse me.
But on the upside, you do get another Edward, and I think that's what's really important.
Oh yeah, the extra Edwards are always nice. But yeah, if at this point, if Smapety or Silverfire or whoever is up there, or whoever goes to Tower of Zot and sees a hook, they are going to be very, very sad. Looks like we've
Honestly.
got Conti in the Mega Sister spot. This is another one that could be a challenge. We'll see how it goes.
Very high magic generally in this spot, which when you're using Glare, usually a one-hit kill on the best of times.
Yeah,
Probably going to be a one-hit kill here too.
Yeah, the Glare would definitely be a one-hit kill. I think it depends on how many Boreases people have, because that weakness to ice is going to be key here.
You also have to be aware of when he's opening and closing his cape, as that can turn ice into a heal if you're not careful.
And Smapety had plenty of Boreases, finished Rubicon off with the Gaia Drum, able to take down the Fiend of Fire. Very well handled there.
And we'll soon get to see what the second boss is. We already know who the characters are, so some of the mystery is gone. But I think you're hoping for maybe not necessarily one of the free bosses, because you want that later, but one of the easier bosses.
Yeah, I think in this, basically at every situation, you're like, I hope that I fight a boss that's appropriate for this spot for me.
We just see that Pain Man is going to be the second boss in the Dwarf Castle. With how low the hit point value is there, that might be a pretty okay, doable fight. But he can be pretty nasty in the wrong spots, especially with the low hit point values you're going to be dealing with Edward.
Dr. Cossack taking another shot at the Baron fights. See if the Mylon fight goes better for him this time around. Meanwhile, Kasich just finished the Mylon fight. Smapety about to see the boss that's in the Vanilla Valvula spot.
I reckon Dr. Cossack will be able to get through this time. His levels are pretty in line with Kate Sith had, and as you can see, they got through it pretty quick. Ooh, yawn.
Yeah, this is not a bad spot to see the Karate Man. Kinazo's, Valvulus's spot does not have a very high physical attack, so and it looks like those Artemis arrows are doing work.
Oh, absolutely. It should be simple fight, simple life. Probably better to find him here than on the moon. I've seen old Yang wreck some houses in later spots.
Yeah, you don't want to see the Karate Man at a place like Ashura. Not that Ashura is a spot that anyone's going to care about in this flag set, but...
Yeah. So Smapey gets past. We're gonna see what that key item is soon. I'm
Uh,
hoping for
the
the
runners
hook.
are gonna, yeah, the runners are gonna be hoping for the magnet key. I think Edward take on a hook scene here.
Uh, you always want to see the hook when you're watching, but never when you're actually playing.
Absolutely, but when you're not running the scene, but you're seeing it, that's when you want the hook.
Maybe next time, everyone.
Yeah, well, you can't win them all.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of times to curse them as this goes forward. Much sadness in the chat right now.
Yeah, well, I'm depressed.
It looks like Silverfire is in the midst of their fight against Rubicant, so not too far behind on getting that Magma Key. It's going to be a question of if Smapey is going to have enough time to get a significant advantage as they go forth. Because, I mean, if they stumble across the Darkness Crystal earlier and Silverfire goes somewhere else, that could be enough to really level the playing field.
Well, this is also interesting because Smapey basically used mostly Boreases, which exploited the weakness to ice that Rubicant has. Silverfire is using Grimoires instead and Gaia Drums that don't have that, so might eat that glare and see Rubicant's cloak close. We'll see if Silver's able to end this fight before that happens.
Although on the other hand, since they're not using the ice ability, if the jacket does close, they're going to be safe from that heal, and they get past.
Luckily, still able to do enough damage in that Mega Sister spot to defeat Rubicant before that became a problem. So, good job, Silverfire there.
Looks like Dr. C is having his crack at Mylon. Best of luck to him on the second run, but I think he'll be alright this time around.
Looks like Starveiled up everybody this time around.
Probably a good strategy after the last fight he had.
Yeah, can't blame him after how everything went down the...
I mean, if he used up all his Star Veils, that might be something you regret later if you run into Wyvern or Golbez. But I think for now it's fine.
He's maybe finding exits in the shop in the Dwarf Castle. Pretty nice to find, because with no white mages in the party, no other way to cast exits. So.
Oh yeah. Even just having them to get past NPCs and towns are more than enough to make up for the cost you might have to throw down for those exits.
Oh yeah. Kaipo and Toria, I've definitely used many an exit to get out of there.
Oh yeah. Sometimes the NPCs in Agard aren't much nicer either.
Oh yeah, there is a big traffic jam in Kaipo quite often. Dr. Kostak able to take down Mylon. Nice job.
He's gonna be very happy to see that spoon, I imagine. What'll be interesting to see is Smapey has already seen that the second boss is gonna be Pain Man. Do you go for it, or do you go, nah, I think I'm good, bro, I'll come back later? Man, there's no telling how much that Dark Wave is gonna do, and you don't have much to go on hit points wise. It might be an impossible fight currently.
Silverfire able to take down the Karate Man. We'll be getting their Magma Key here as well.
I reckon this is where the race is really going to kick off, because there's so many directions you can take right off the bat in the underground. Do you go to the Fey March? Do you go talk to Yang? Do you go to the Dwarf Castle? I imagine most people will hold off on Yang till they get a pan, but sometimes you got to take the gamble. There's also the Tower Key in place, so somebody might go right to the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, I think that tower key is going to be a temptation for some of the runners. We'll see if anyone decides to go that route right away. We do see Smith doing a quick shopping run, it looks like.
One thing to consider with that tower key is that roof boss is going to be fairly tough for this HP level, but the tower key room itself is going to be very low hit points. You can probably kill it before it even moves. Is it worth running up there, getting that key item, and running out? Or do you want to wait till you know you can do both at the same time?
Yeah, it kind of depends on who the boss is. Some of them you're going to be A-okay, and even at these low HP levels, with stuff like the Artemis bow and arrow, the glass helmet, the spoon, like you've got a lot of good equipment. So even though you might have low HP levels, you might be able to take on bosses that look a lot more tougher than you can act than like if you just look at the baseline, like, oh, I've only got 300 HP, I can't take on bosses like this. Actually, you might be able to take on more than you think.
Absolutely. Like I said before, Eddie is a lot more versatile than a lot of people give him credit for. With the right stuff, he can do some work you might not expect him to do.
And he's quite fast as well, so that helps.
Yeah. With the flag set, I mean, you find Cure 3s in a shop and Bacchus wines. You Bacchus up the Edward that has the spoon, and you have the other one playing chemist. You don't even need the other three. Granted, you'll have to level up well enough to make that valid, but I think with all Edwards, you're going to kind of have to overlevel just a smidge nonetheless.
Yeah, I think like most of the other bosses in the game are doable at relatively low levels for Edward, but you're still going to have a tough time. Zeramus still looms at the end of this run.
You're going to want at least, I think, around 2,000 hit points. Otherwise, those big bangs are just going to wreck your day, unless you're really on the ball about nerfing each and every one of them. And even then, with no mass heal, you're going to be throwing down Cure 3s one at a time, so you still want to have some survivability. It looks like Dr. C choosing to go up Mount Ordeals first. They're going to be a little unhappy once they see what's at that Earth crystal, but you never know. It might work out in the end. You're going to need the extra levels at the very least. The Sand Ruby's not really going to help them.
We've got a question in the chat from Nitsky1 who says they're new to the game. I'll leave it at that. Ask, why are all the Edwards? This is one of the flag sets for the World Series of Free Enterprise that's coming up starting in February. This is one of the events is going to be a race where you've got to use all Edwards in order to complete the game. And so
otherwise,
we're showcasing that tonight.
Yeah, looks like Smapey is checking the Feymarch. Got a rat tail in the vanilla spot, I believe. Can't do anything with it yet, but could be where the crystal is later.
Yeah, that'll be nice. They might be hoping to. The runners might be hoping to find a pink tail before going there as well, because an adamant armor would definitely be useful in this run.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Nits, and I wish you luck on your introduction to the game. Looks like Smatey's trying to decide what to do next. A little bit of a pause there. Can't really blame him, because you don't really have to go after the summon monsters, but if there is an easy boss there, the experience would be mighty tempting.
Yeah, it's also Smitty ended up decided to check out another shop before leaving. The thing about those shops are in the Feymarch, you don't really want to. You want to do all the shopping in the Feymarch in one trip. You don't want to head back down there. You don't have to. And now it looks like Smitty's going to be climbing the tower. Finding that tower key earlier is making this a much, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, a much more attractive check.
Now the only question now is, are they doing the whole thing, or are they just doing the one and escape? I would assume they're gonna try to do the whole tower, because, I mean, if you're going for it, you might as well go all in. General rule of free enterprise, always stick to your plan, unless the plan goes off the rails.
And as Groundflyer mentioned in the chat, Silverfire, well, when picking up their the rat tail there, has picked up their 10th key item, which means all experience values for the rest of the run will be doubled. And so fighting bosses like in the tower, in the dwarf castle are now doubled, and it looks like they're going to make use of that by fighting one egg right here and get double experience on that right now.
Hey, you only got one siren, you gotta make it count, and this is probably the best way of doing it. Unfortunately, also on 1 hit point, so you're gonna have to deal with the auto-hide function. They may have to run from this battle, wasting the siren, which you just hate to see it happen.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for Silverfire. Because without sirens and shops, they're limited to sirens with the number of them that they're able to find in random chests, which is probably not going to be too many. That might be the only one that they find throughout the entire run. So if they just squandered it, that's unfortunate, because it looked like Silver was probably planning on counting on that for a little experience boost. And now it's going to have to hope that these bosses here, the Dwarf Castle, if that's what they're planning on doing, are not as difficult as they might have, as Silver might have been able to take care of with another couple levels.
Yeah, I almost have to say, is that a situation where I didn't see where Silverfire saved last, but do you reset, or do you just go, you know what, my bad, let's just keep going, because having that siren might save you later.
I imagine had Silver saved right before using that siren, they would have reset. But my guess is the last save was before dipping down to the Fey March and getting that rat tail, and I think that's the reason that we're not seeing and that's the reason we're not seeing a reset here.
Probably, right? And it looks like Dr. C is starting the boss fights for the Tower of Zot, so won't be too far behind with the Magma Key search. And Kate Sith also on the Tower of Azat, so everybody's pretty much caught up to the underground point now.
Yeah, Dr. C not having the Boreases or the Grimoires, but hopefully the Artemis arrows will provide enough firepower here.
Absolutely, and I mean, stuff still could go wrong, so might not be quite caught up yet, depending. I mean, it looks like that fire too is giving Dr. C some trouble. Ooh, King and Queen Eblin for Silverfire, so very early first fight, but then you do have Dark Knight Cecil right after, so it could be the perfect mix of pleasure and pain.
I think it's going to depend on whether or not Silverfire can get one of them to hide during that Dark Knight Cecil fight. I think that's going to be probably the easiest way to take care of that.
Well, here's an interesting concept. What if you intentionally weakened one of the Edwards during this fight where it was free, so that they auto-hide? So right off the bat, they're hiding, and you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, as
Demeron pointing out you can't auto-hide from bosses. My mistake.
Yeah, that's an anti-soft lock thing in the game. So, because if Edward's your only character and you auto-hide in a boss, you can't do anything.
You can tell I don't do the full party Edward too often.
Okay, Silver got past the very easy King and Queen and Evelyn. They're very. I don't think there's any spot where I think they're very difficult. So
no, they're one of those bosses you want to see late.
But this is that's a pretty good experience pickup there too. That these dwarf castle fights, especially with the key items, are pretty good.
But it all doesn't matter if you can't get past Pain Man. Ooh, just barely getting it off.
Got that off.
That could have gone very sad very quickly.
Very nicely done, Silverfire.
I get to see if going in Dwarf Castle was the correct choice, or if Smate's trek up the Tower of Babel is the correct choice in just a moment. Just gonna watch a little floaty hand first.
Smapty did find a protect ring in the Tower of Babel, and that's a very useful, one of the best rings in the game, and Edward can equip it. So that's very nice. Protect rings and crystal rings are the best defensive rings, and if you can find them, they're very good in this run for Edward.
Absolutely. You pair that glass helm with that protect ring, and you're going to be pretty hard to hurt. Ooh, the pass. Ooh, Wyvern. Just bad news all around.
Well, with the Witch Burn, they start with gas, which is not a very good attack. And now they've got that Artemis bow and arrow, which does a lot of extra damage against dragons. So this could be not nearly as scary as it would be in other situations.
Now that's strategy.
Smapty telling us the best strategy for defeating the Wyvern is to have a bunch of Artemis bows and arrows.
Sometimes you gotta like a little flourish for the crowd, you know? Got a legend sword for his troubles. Not gonna help in this particular run, as this is not Forge the Crystal. But we'll get to the 10 key items, since I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, he's not quite there yet. Ooh, Valvolus in the Tower Room. With the HP levels, probably not going to be that difficult. But definitely not a boss you want to see in harder places.
No, I think the runners will be very happy to find Valvolus in this location and not in a more difficult spot.
Looks like Dr. C on the Yang fight won't be too far away from getting that Magma Key, with Kate Sif right behind him. I imagine Smapty's going to be making a beeline right for that front door. We'll see if the tower key proved to be useful quite yet. And Silverfire right behind on heading up the tower. You almost gotta wonder, is talking to Yang early the play?
Yeah, that's something that we haven't seen the runners do yet, but yeah. We'll see what Smapty gets from the tower key defeating Valvolus as he exits the tower here.
Tell you what, nothing makes you sadder than you talk to Yang, you go back and talk to Sheila, she gives you the pan, so you have to go right back down and hit Yang just to come right back up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what happens in the vanilla game.
Speaking of the pan, there it is. I think he will be going right for Yang now.
Yep, heading right over to the Silk Cave. Instead of trying the sealed cave would be the other place to go at this point. But we are starting to run. We're starting to run low on key item spots. So we've got both of Sheila's items and the sealed cave to check.
I think whenever you see Wyvern, your heart stops for a minute, but once you see that it's not a Mega Flare, that relaxation takes over you. I think in the chat, somebody is trying to announce that they're done, but I'm not fully sure. So we'll keep you up to date on that as we figure out what's going on over there. I missed what the Sylph gave them after they whacked Yang in the head.
Yeah, I didn't see that either, but it was, I mean, it's not a key out of it. It might have been nice.
It was another glass helm, so good for pumping up the defense, but not good so much for progression.
Well, I mean, K1, it's not going to be a key item.
And, ooh, crystal!
Ooh. We have the crystal, but Smapty does not have the pass or the darkness crystal yet, so Smapty not quite in go mode yet.
Crystal and the hook. So I'm going to assume, I mean, it could be in Luca Cave or whatever, but you could get that darkness crystal going and turning in that rat tail, and then pretty much it's just gaining levels.
Yep, that's a possibility. Or it could be the adamant or the pink tail.
Well, I mean, if you find that pink tail, you're going to be praising the maker in this particular flag set, because anything that can make Edward almost indestructible, you gotta run with.
On the one hand, they'll be happy for an adamant arc. On the other hand, they'll be sad that they'll have to dip Luca Cave. But no, it is the darkness crystal. Smapty is the first of our featured runners in go mode.
So now comes the question, how do you level up with only one siren? I assume he's going to go right for the Luca Cave. It's the best place as far as I can think of.
The Luca Cave is one, or you can just grind random encounters on the moon. Turn your random encounters on and fight mobs on the moon. I think those are the two. I mean, you can try to do like some sort of like D-machine grind with hourglasses. I don't know. I think that's probably the slower of those options, but I think that's what you're going to be looking for.
I mean, I would say the moon probably going to get you levels quicker, but you do have to wonder, can you survive the fights, at least until you get a few levels under your belt.
Yeah, there's that, and as long as the runners have been able to find hourglasses, that's going to make them a lot safer. But it looks like Smapty is going to be heading and going to be completing that Baron castle here.
See, under normal circumstances, some people might consider that a mistake, but knowing that we know it's the spoon, probably a really good choice, all things considered.
Well, it depends. Silverfire is heading down the Sylph Cave right now. It is going to be rewarded with that crystal.
It is true. They're kind of in a race against time to get better, but we also don't know how long each person's grind is going to take, so could be one of those situations where you're kind of rubber banding who's in first and who's in second. And I'm guessing Silverfire is opening trap chests to try to get a couple quick doses of experience just to move along that grind. So, I mean, it might give Smapty enough time to get that spoon and go to a better experience spot. But at the same time, these extra levels might allow Sil to better do those moon fights to get levels quicker.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the... Silver also chatting with some sylphs there. That's always the give and take of a race like this. Is what you're doing now going to benefit you later, and then how much so?
Yeah, you always got to think 10 steps ahead. You know, you could say, okay, I'm going to do the King Ryu grind to get my levels up, and then you stumble across Fusaya, and all of a sudden that D machine starts looking mighty tempting. Obviously, not going to be something they run across here, but you always got to be aware that things can change at a moment's notice.
Now, this is going to be the thing for Smapty is deciding to go and do this Baron run means that they're fighting that Kabul Gauntlet right now. That is a long fight that they have avoided until now, but this is giving Silverfire the time to go up and talk to Sheila. Is going to get the crystal, going to get the hook, and is probably going to take that hook right on over to the rat tail chest to get that darkness crystal.
Absolutely. They're going to be pretty much neck and neck for a good chunk of this, I would imagine. Smapey is getting through it a little quicker than he would otherwise do so, just by using the attack all items, but might be enough of a delay for Silverfire to pull ahead.
Yeah, I would say at this point, Silver's probably a little bit ahead, especially since Silver already has that spoon too, so the advantage that Smapey is getting from making this choice of doing this battle, Silver already has.
But again, there's always the potential for very bad luck when you're on that moon fighting those enemies. They are some of the toughest enemies in the game, and Edward's not exactly known for his resistance to damage. The behemoth fights in particular can be really nasty, assuming they're going for the trap chest to level quicker.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll want to make that risk. The prospect of seeing double red dragon, I think, is a bit too scary. At least it would be for me. I know you've got Artemis arrows, but still, man, that heat ray is really scary.
At least until you've got an adamant armor that might give you a little bit of leeway. But even then, they're still gonna not exactly be a love tap.
Looks like Silverfire is going to choose for a door grind as they're heading down to the sealed cave right now.
Possibly not a bad choice. I mean, with the 10 key items, it only takes like I'd say about half of the doors to get to that level 50 spot, which, again, with Edward, you might want to go a little bit higher. It's going to take a bit before he gets to that 2,000 health threshold. But again, if you have Star Veils, you just wait for it to search for somebody, throw it on, and instantly killed,
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be quite that fast. Well, maybe they are.
Although there is also the question of, do you try to kill the door as the door, or do you wait for it to transform because you get a little bit extra experience when it's the new form?
Yeah, but then you're taking more time dealing with you're dealing more time in menuing because you're going to have to revive somebody who got hit by the what is it, Dimension 9, something like that.
I forget what it's called in the vanilla game. It's been a while since I've done the old door grind. I thought it was something like Dissolve or something like that. Disrupt, Chad is telling me.
Disrupt.
And Snapey is about to get his spoon. Many happies on his end.
Yeah, and then we'll see if Snapey also decides to do the dark ride. I mean, the other thing that could be an advantage of going this sealed cave route is once they get to the bottom, they can check the key item, and if it happens to be the pink tail, choose to fight the boss and be able to finish the game with an adamant armor.
That is true.
But that last item could be the adamant, and then it's just not useful.
There's also the issue of, you get that key item, it's the pink tail, you go to Louvre, all of a sudden, there's Gobez.
Yeah, it
He's
could be
just there to ruin your day.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to save before you do that. Although I don't know if Galvez would be too scary. It looks like Silver, as long as Silver has Moon Veils or Star Veils, it shouldn't be too difficult to win that one.
I think I saw they have at least one moon veil, so if they hang on to that, they might be okay.
Yeah, that's all you really need in order to beat Galvez.
It looks like Dr. C managed to get the hide off, so he's past old Pain Man as well.
Excellent, good job, Dr. Kazek.
Might as well go ahead with the thought you were about to toss out.
Oh, it was probably really important what I was about to say, but the moment has passed. Because basically almost anything that I say is going to be extraordinarily important.
Oh, we have a microphone and they don't, so everything we say is the pinnacle of importance.
This is interesting from Silver. One thing that I'm noticing, oftentimes when I decide that I'm going to do the door grind, I just turn on the random encounters when it's time to do the door. But Silver is keeping the random encounters on throughout the entire one and avoiding those menus and just running for the enemies. I think with Eddie's speed, there isn't as much risk of getting like a back attack or something like that makes all the enemies, especially those annoying bats, trigger all their attacks before getting a turn. So this might be a good gambit.
It's kind of a catch-22 at times because, if you leave battles on, you might run into multiple battles, and the time it takes to run is gonna not equal, the time it takes to toggle on and off, but it also might work the other way around.
Right, and then right as I mentioned that, they turn off the encounters, but then that was a little bit of a longer stretch in between doors. So
it looks like Smapey is doing some shopping, giving Silverfire a little bit more time to get their levels up. Hopefully, not too much time.
Yeah, it looks like Kate Sith fell during the first fight against Dark Knight Cecil. And so it's going to be giving that another go here. I don't know if just wasn't able to get the hide off or missed it. I wasn't watching that fight, and I apologize for that. Looks like Smapey is going to go check the shop in the Evan Cave.
You can't really blame. It's a pretty tight window to get that hide off, and if you pick the wrong Edward, whose health is just slightly lower than what he gets hit for, you can't do much about it.
Right, yeah, and that, as we saw during the earlier fights, just one of those dark waves can potentially take out an Edward, especially if they got hit by King Edwin's Fire 2 or in the previous fight.
It looks like hit points wise, they've got a little bit more than Syl did at the time, but again, if they get Fire 2 on one person in particular, that's who you choose to hide. You're all ruined. I imagine Syl is probably got a couple fair whacks of doors to kill yet to even get to the point where Edward can survive Big Bang. So Smapey still could pull ahead if he opts to go for the moon grind instead.
And I don't remember if Smapey found the same siren that Silver had accidentally wasted earlier. So if Smapey uses that, say, for a King Ryu fight in the lunar subterrane, that's a lot of experience. I think it's like something like if you can life glitch, it's something like 180,000 experience on one fight, and that's a big game.
Oh yeah. It's definitely one of those things with this type of seed that if you know you're only going to have one siren, where do you use it? Do you need it to push you past the middle game? Can you afford to hold on to it to the end?
Now, I'm not sure what Smapey's game is right now, going deeper into the Evelyn Cave. I don't know if there's a particular treasure that he's looking for, because...
Well, with T4, he could possibly find adamant armor in a random chest. I don't know if I would necessarily gamble on it being there, but
Yeah, that's
There is
kind of.
that.
I'm kind of in that same boat. I'm not quite sure exactly what the upside is here. Like, I don't think the upside, like when you're in go mode, like Smith is, I don't think it's. I don't. I don't know if the play is to loot random chests for a potential adamant item.
I mean, there's also the option that he may be trying to get experience by killing the trap chest fights, which I'm not sure if that's the best idea with these particular fights and how much experience you get.
Yeah, the Staleman chest in particular is not known as like one of the big uh, EXP fights.
That being said, if he does dive down far enough to get to the 4 Mad Ogres fight, you can do the life glitch, which it's not going to make or break the game, but it's a decent amount.
Yeah, the Mad Ogres is definitely a better experience chest than the Staleman without like it isn't even close. But again, that's you're going deeper in, and you can't use exit when you're in the upper Babel. You have to walk out to the Evelyn Cave before you can exit out again. Like I'm just I'm just unsure of this logic, and we'll see what happens. But Silver's continuing the grind in the doors. Dr. Cossack fighting that wyvern.
Maybe he just wants another Edward.
That's probably it. Actually, that's not. Now that I think about it, that might not be just the worst idea. Because there's a catch-up mechanic with experience. And it looks like. Okay, no. Because that wouldn't have been the. Because then you could get your one fight in. If you did it on the King Ryu, it was 100 experience on one fight, and have that even be multiplied even further for the catch-up. Might not have been the worst idea, but I guess I'm not sure.
Well, the other thing, I mean, I wouldn't take Edward for this purpose now, but a brand new Edward has 14 agility, and that puts you at a sweet spot to make Zeramus a little bit slower later. So it's almost of worth to go, okay, I'm about to go fight Zeramus. Who can I sacrifice for a brand new Edward to have in that middle spot, get that agility anchoring going on?
Well, the runners have ditched a bunch of Edwards so far in this run, so we do have the rescue flag for this, so they can go to the Tower of Wishes and pick up any of the Edwards that they ditched earlier in the game.
It does look like Smatey is trying to do that life glitch. I'm not sure if it's a good strategy. I mean, I don't think they'll have any trouble getting past this fight, but I think there would have been better uses for that time. But who knows?
Right.
They might get an adamant armor off the chest,
Well, it's one of these things where it's like, if this had been a hook seed and not a magma key seed, like doing this fight and life glitching these ogres, absolutely the right thing to do. I just think in this situation where Smatey's in go mode at this point, I don't think this is going to be the best grind.
Meanwhile, Dr. C just got his pan. He's not going to be too far behind the others with turning that in, getting his go mode going. And meanwhile, Kate Sith looking around the Feymarch, a little bit behind, but there's only so many places to search. I don't think it'll be too long before they're caught up as well. Looks like Silverfire has reached the end in the level 50s, so good spot to be. And I think they're going to actually go for the key item.
And Smatey is now walking out. Had to dig pretty deep into Upper Babel to find that Mad Ogre chest, but it does look like that's what the goal was to fight those Mad Ogres.
Justin adamant, so noping out. Can't really blame them.
Yeah. Don't have to worry about that. Did not get a pigtail, so now it just has to walk out. And any further grinding will have to be done on the moon.
Now,
I guess it doesn't have to be, but I think that's the fastest place.
I didn't see what treasure Smapey got for that 4 Mad Ogres.
It was a crystal
it
shield.
Ooh, that's unfortunate. I think this is going to be a race who goes to the moon first and happens to go after the right boss.
Well, I don't think they're gonna. I guess they could fight bosses for experience, or they could fight random encounters.
So, I mean, they're still, even at level 50, Eddie's decent, but he's probably not going to take an unfiltered Big Bang to the face. And I mean, you could try to nerf every one, but sometimes the timing is not in your favor, and one will sneak by and just liquidate the whole party.
Yeah, and I know Silver's quite good at this game, and can probably nerf Big Bangs with the best of them, but any insurance might be helpful here.
Yeah, I think when you're dealing with all Edwards, at the very least, you want to have around 2,000 health. I mean, if you had other characters to work off of, you could deal with them being a little lower, but when literally at any time a unfiltered Big Bang can just kill you outright, you want that cushion to hold you in place just in case something goes wrong. It looks like Snapey is the first one on the moon, checking the Hummingway shop. Cure 3s and Bacchus wines for sale, both very valuable for this particular party.
Yeah, and those Cure 3s are going to be very important during the Zeromus fight. Because if they're going to be nerfing Big Bangs, which they probably are, they're going to have to deal with the counter nukes. And the counter nukes are easily remedied with Cure 3s.
Yeah, I think with an all Edwards party, you're going to want at least one of them playing Chemist. As fun as quad zerking is, I think with their hit point levels, it's a pretty bold strategy to go with.
Yeah, I've only done one practice seed with this. Ooh, Spapey gonna go with the hair dryer's chest too. It looks like. I've only done one practice seed with this flag set, and I did my grind up to about level 60 in order to get the 2,000 HP, and I zerked up 3 of my Edwards, and I used 2 of them as chemists just to be on the safe side. And so I was being a bit conservative, but I never claimed to be really good at this.
I mean, if you're really good, you really know what you're doing. You could have 1 spoon berserk Edward and 1 chemist, but I almost think you need to have the other ones up as a fail-safe, just in case something goes wrong. And the good thing about Edward is he's just very versatile, you know. You could have him doing arrows, you could have him doing spoon strats, you could have him doing chemistry.
Yeah, and finding the Artemis bow and arrows is really going to help. That means any Edward that gets zerked up in the Zeromus fight is going to be very potent. Looks like Dr. Cossack is cashing in the Siren for an egg.
3 levels, not bad.
In one fight.
I think one benefit Silverfire has over everybody else right now is they're not too far behind that max level that they need to get to spot, you know. If you're really good and you can guarantee nerf Big Bangs every time, you might even be able to just say the hell with it, we're doing it.
Yeah, it depends on how comfortable Sil is with the nerfing Big Bangs. If they found a Silk Web, that'll help with it, with the timing, by slowing down Zeromus a bit. Yeah, I mean, Spapey finally heading over to the lunar subterrane after taking a nap in the big lunar, the big whale in this version. big whale.
I would almost say that having a silk web, if possible, is almost necessary, just with how fast Edward is in general. If you're not going back and getting a guaranteed agility nerf Edward, that silk web might be what it takes to not just get onslaughted.
Well, there's also the possibility that they picked up a cursed ring during the game, and that could be used to make one of the Edwards an anchor as well.
It looks like Syl has one right in their inventory. Although I don't recall where it was found offhand.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that. Dr. Cossack just picked up his Darkness Crystal, officially in go mode as well.
But even with being in go mode, it's still a bit of a journey before you're truly in go mode. Still got to figure out what's the best way to level.
Yeah, and with this one, I recommend making sure that you're comfortable with the fight, the Zeramus fight. Like, if you feel like you're over leveling, it's not over leveling if you don't level, you know?
I think with an Edward percent seed, the instinct would be to over level. But again, if you're really good, especially if you're prepared for using Edward, you might be able to sneak past with lower levels.
Yeah, I think it's really dependent on how you are with this, and being able to nerf the big bangs, deal with the counter nukes, because that's really the main thing. How good are you at getting your timing right to make sure those big bangs aren't doing full damage?
I see Smapety making a beeline for the bottom of the lunar subterranean. I don't recall if he's used his siren, so he might be going for that King Ryu fight. Meanwhile, Silverfire just turning on encounters. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way. PMA telling me that he actually has 2 sirens. So that's a very good deal with this particular need to grind up. Silverfire does have a head start, though.
Yeah, all of those doors that Silver defeated down in the sealed cave definitely has a grinding head start, but Snapety's going to be able to use those sirens in King Ryu's, which, as we mentioned before, with his 10 key items, is going to be about 180,000 experience if they can get the life glitch off.
And I'm looking at one of the...
Somehow get a double.
Oh, I'm looking at the HP levels of his party, and I see a 60 health Edward. It looks like he did take the Lunar Palace Edward to get that 14 agility. Immediately made sure that Edward... Oh, no, he brought that Edward back up. I was going to say maybe he was trying to ensure that he had the agility anchor, but maybe not.
It looks like Spapesty is going to try to slingshot that Edward.
Another fine thing to do. I mean, you get one Edward that's past that 2,000 health threshold. You throw your best gear and your spoon on him, and all you need the other people to do is just throw out those Cure 3s, and you might have enough to get past.
Yeah, that one Edward gained 39 levels on that one fight, and is now did not probably wanted to slingshot a little bit more than that, but you take what you get.
Yeah, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find the go from level 1 to level 80 slingshot without dealing with something like a D-Machine.
Dimmerin mentioning the 147,800 from 2 carry and Warlock fight. If you could guarantee that fight every time, that would be awesome, because that fight is a very good experience spot. But you have to deal with this like Syl's fighting this one Warlock right now. That's not nearly as efficient as the 2 carry 2 Warlock.
Missed a life glitch. Very unfortunate.
Still, 120k is pretty good.
Looks like Kate Sith is scaling the tower now. Hopefully, it won't be too far behind the rest of our runners. I mean, it's going to be a tough catch-up, but if things go poorly with the grinding, it's not impossible.
Looks like Smeepy is choosing to fight some of the bosses for the experience down here. Seeing Bahamut here, and if has at least 1 star veil, so and 10 moon veils. So if the counter looks like it's going to be getting too low, you can do that. A couple dragons that Silver came up against.
You see, fighting the bosses is a bold strategy, but it could pay off not only because you're going to get so much experience off these fights that it's just worth it on its own, but there is still the possibility that it's going to be like, oh, here, have an adamant armor.
Luckily, Silver, with those extra levels, can tank some damage from the blizzard that the blue D has, and those Artemis bow and arrows do real work on the dragons.
It looks like, looking at Sill's HP levels, they're kind of getting to that point where it's almost a question of if it's worth the risk of doing, because at 1700, you're probably going to survive most big bangs, unless it's a really nasty one. But looks like they're not quite ready to go just yet. We're going to get a few more levels. Can't really blame them. And Kate Sith about to fight has finished the Valvalus fight, rather. My mistake. And they're going to be heading on out, getting their pan, and I have to imagine making a beeline for Yang, and then Sheila, and then straight to the moon. Assuming they don't go for the door grind themselves.
Yeah, and Dr. Cossack returning to the blue planet, and probably going to do either going to be doing some shopping, or we might see another door grind as well.
And we got our first place finisher. Penguinator has finished with a SRL time of 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 15 seconds.
And it looks like Cossack is going to be going for that door grind here.
Man, if you don't feel safe enough to run right to the moon, the door grind's probably the safest place, so I think it's where I'd go.
So while we're seeing several of our runners do the grind before we get into the final boss fight, I'd just like to take this time to thank PMA KFAL for doing the tracking tonight, Demerin2 for restreaming tonight, everyone over at the Randomania Network for letting us have our fun on Monday nights here, and my co-commentator JDP.
Everybody in this community is the real MVP.
And of course, our 4 runners, Smapty, Silverfire, Dr. Cossack, and Kate Sith.
Yeah, we got 4 of some of the best runners available. It's always a pleasure to watch them run. And if you're enjoying what you're watching, I encourage you, stop by for all the community races. It's always a fun time.
Yep, we're always here at 9:30 Eastern time on Monday nights, usually on one of the Randomania channels. It might vary exactly which channel. We have another community race on Fridays. I believe that's at 7 o'clock Eastern. You might have to correct me on that one. And then we mentioned earlier, and as you see on the bottom of the screen, WSOFE, the World Series of Free Enterprise is coming up at the end of February. And if you head to the Discord, you can see all the details about that. It's going to be a really fun event coming up.
I can't encourage people enough. Join the Discord if you like what you see, because this, bar none, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I'm right. This is bar none the single best community of gamers you're going to find online. And I mean, I've seen some communities. This is clearly the best one.
And I will say thank you, Nitsky, for confirming 7 p.m. Eastern. It's so good that somebody brand new to the community like you, Nitsky, is so well versed in where we're at on these. So thank you very much.
Such an informed newbie. It's always nice to see.
All right, it looks like Silver's ready to the Zero fight. We're going to see how this goes with all Edwards.
And as Scarlet Kitty said, there's a certain catchphrase we say when we're about to go see that Zeromus fight, and it's, whose butt are we going to kick tonight? And the reason why we say this is because one of the other Easter eggs with this randomizer is if you have the Z flag on, you're not going to see the normal Zeromus fight. That's boring. Throw it in the garbage. Nobody wants that. You're going to see one of, I think it's up to like 500 now, different skins that, well, to be honest, it's mostly Scarlet Kitty who has made most of these, but I think there's been a few by board as well. Just different Zeromus sprites. It's always a treat.
She's the Princess of Pixels, and I'm convinced that there's probably like over 50,000. So.
And I mean, you think with all of those, there'd be a couple that are but no, every one of them super high quality. Scala does excellent work. And if you ask me, this particular Easter egg is by far the best part of Free Enterprise, bar none.
All right, and here we go.
Looks like Nightbee is on his way as well. I think with this particular Zeromus fight, more things have a chance of going wrong than in most Zeromus fights, so it's gonna be interesting to see how people adapt to having to deal with Edward and his weaknesses. And it looks like we have Krangmus.
Krang!
It'll be up to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Edwards to finally put Krangmus down in the ground, and I look forward to seeing all 4 of these runners pull it off.
Okay, I was depressed earlier from the lack of... I love me some Krang.
It's hard to be sad when you got Krang going on.
So this is interesting. Smapety is trying this fight now at much lower HP level Silver. So going to be way more dependent on making sure that all the big bangs are nerfed. Like, I think this is going to be pretty dangerous, but I think Silver's going to be a little bit safer.
Yeah, that hit point level, if even one unnerfed Big Bang goes through, I think that's game over. So you got to be on the ball. I'm hoping he has a strategy in mind and he's not just saying the hell with it, let's go. I'm looking at Kate's screen. It looks like they're skipping the doors entirely and just going to the bottom to check the key item. That's probably going to bite them in the butt a little bit.
Yeah, I think Kate Sith, since he hasn't gone to Sheila after the pan, so is probably looking for a crystal or a darkness crystal down here.
It is highly likely he's going to reset when he sees nothing of value. Looks like Dr. C is also in the sealed cave.
Dr. C is doing a grind.
Yeah, looking at his levels, he's probably going after the doors. Things are starting to look a little dicey for Smithy here. Silverfire making excellent use of those silk webs to nerf Big Bangs. Always a good strategy to just buy a crap ton of them, and every time you see him shake, wait a second and throw it down. You'll take a nuke to the face, but it's going to be a lot better than what you get otherwise. Smithy's got one of his Edwards back to max health. Probably going to need more than one standing, though, if all goes wrong.
We've got another Cure 3 off.
What's interesting is Kate Sith sees that it's the adamant, and they're tossing things out of their inventory rather than just saying nope right away. So it's looking like he might stick with it, which, wasting all those doors, I gotta assume that's a big mistake.
Unless Kaseth had already decided they wanted to do a moon grind.
That is true.
Didn't think about doing doors at all.
It looks like we got demissed, which under normal circumstances would be a good find. But here, Kate says nope, right in the garbage. We're gonna skedaddle, which I can't blame him.
And Smapty takes a wipe against Zeramus there. That's tough.
Meanwhile, Silverfire in meteor phase, but only one Edward standing.
That was a rough meteor there.
And it's a berserk. Ooh, and they pull it off.
There's the flash.
And meanwhile, while all those fights were going on, we had Zyrek in second place with 145.49, and Silverfire in third at 146.36 rather. Very good GGs there for Silverfire.
I'll see if Silver wants to come in for an interview.
And I believe that's Silver right now. What a win. What are your thoughts on that fight with all Edwards?
Hello, Silverfire, are you there?
Might be having some technical difficulties. No. Looks like they've dropped out of chat. Just having some technical difficulties. If we can get them back in, we will. Nope, looks like they're back.
Hello, Silverfire.
We're doing a little bit of a Discord enter and enter dance.
Okay, well, meanwhile, looks like Spapty's going to give another attempt here, and Dr. Cossack is also at the Zeramus fight.
Dr. Cossack did a bit more grinding, so might have an easier time than Smapty has been having.
Hello.
Hi,
there you
Silverfire.
are.
Hi.
GG's.
Thank you.
How do you feel about your run?
It felt okay. I don't have a good sense. Like, I haven't actually practiced these flags before, so I didn't really have a good sense of how many levels I needed before I could safely take on Zeromus. It turns out approximately as many as I got.
Yeah, with that meteor almost taking out the party at the end, like you were there just barely, but you got it.
Yeah, I
done.
knew I knew that Spoon Edward would be okay soloing after the meteor phase.
Sure. You had like a protect ring and a ribbon.
No ribbon, just a protect ring. It was like protect ring, bandana, black belt shirt.
Okay, yeah. So
like the rest was just strength equipment.
Right. Max out that spoon damage.
And that spoon damage.
What would you say, in your opinion, was the hardest point of the seed? Because, I mean, early on, there's going to be a lot of roughness with Edwards.
Honestly, I didn't run into too much roughness early. I feel like the hardest part was, like, judging when I can handle Z.
Yeah, I think that's
and it looks like I gained a lot more levels than the people I'm watching on the stream.
Yeah, you definitely fighting all the doors really put you in a position where you had a lot more going in, and then you fought the those dragons and some other random fights in the lunar subterrane to get some extra levels at that point too.
Just have to interrupt real quick to say Zilch is 4th place with a time of 1:50:11.
So yeah, I was wondering after all the doors if you were going to be ready at that point, or if you were going to think that there was going to be more needed. So it's interesting that you went there, and it looks like the other runners, Smithy just took another wipe to a big bang. So we'll see if Smithy wants to do some more grinding.
I hate to see it happen.
So you are using like Archer Edward for most of the Edwards.
I mean, yeah, I had 2 Artemis bows and a nice pack. Like I had purchasable Artemis arrows in Agart. So and like that literally like until Edward gets a lot of levels, the bonus strength from that Artemis bow actually makes the Artemis bow out damage the spoon.
Yeah, and especially since the Artemis bow and arrows are going to hit weakness on a lot of things, whereas the spoon just doesn't. So.
Indeed.
Do you have? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for leveling, I'm not sure you could have done it any better than you did. I mean,
well, somebody just pointed out in chat, I could have maybe not hid from an egg.
Yeah, that was.
Well,
that was a really scary egg. Okay, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go fight an egg, and then it's like, Edward's just like, ah, and yes, that egg definitely cost me 2nd place because I lost 2nd place by about 30 seconds. I was definitely staring at that egg, wondering if I could kill it somehow.
Yeah,
at least 30 seconds. Not only that, it would have been like one less fight to deal with on the moon because that would have been another 70k XP.
Well, it did provide some good comedy seeing all Edward's hide immediately at the sight of an egg.
I was just trying to praise you, pretend that we never saw that.
Oh no, I will totally bring up like embarrassing mistakes that I make.
Looks like neither Smithy nor Dr. C thought they could get through 0. They're returning to fighting stuff to grind out. Probably the best choice considering the hit point levels.
Well, so what are your thoughts now that you've gotten a seat under your belt about these flags? Do you think
I feel like
in the World Series?
I definitely go into the World Series with roughly the same plan. I think I want to know a couple like knowledge points about like Edward's high level stats, like where do agility breakpoints happen,
sure,
and so forth. Like 42 agility might have been good. I think I was at like 37 and 47, which is kind of like not optimal, but like when your agility is that high, it's a lot less finicky than it is when like you're trying to do Zeromus with like 20 odd agility on your party. Edward's just really fast compared to like most of the characters in the game.
Yeah, at that point, when you're talking agility, better to have 5 Edwards than 5 Sids, right?
And as we said earlier, there is a bit of a debate. I mean, a level 1 Edward comes built in with 14 agility, so sometimes it might be worth ditching one of them just so you can have that free agility anchor.
14, I would not be comfortable actually with the like all relative agility 1 Zeromus. I don't think. I think it's actively worse than when I was running there. I was actually, another thing I was worried about was the like I couldn't find Cure 3s or elixirs anywhere.
Yeah, not until you get to the moon.
Yeah. Did anyone find adamant armors?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Did not see any in a chest, and there was no pink tail available because when you went down to the sealed cave and saw that
I peeked in what this key item was because it was the last key item. I would have been I looked at 17 out of 17 and then I reset back to 16.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and we
unfortunately,
figured,
it
like,
was
if that last
the
one's if the last one's the adamant, then that's too bad. If it's the pink tail, then you get an adamant armor and you're all set. So
Did anybody finish the Baron Inn fight? I don't recall offhand.
I think everybody did, right?
it. I
Okay.
mean, it's a key item.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like what spots weren't checked by anybody that could have a key item, since it's only
No,
a
it's
key item
it's just the
spot.
base. It's the base spots. I literally had everything.
Yeah, we've seen everything. There was no pink tail seed.
Yeah, one of the 4 adamant legend spoon and pink tail will not be in the seed because the pass is replacing one of them, and there's only 17 slots.
I forgot about that.
Well, Sil, did you have any final thoughts about this seed and this run in general?
Grinding is good. Don't underestimate Zeromus.
Yeah, Zeramus is no joke, that for sure. Well, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for being restreamed so that we could watch your run. It was a lot of fun. And thank you, and GG for your third place finish.
Thank you.
GG.
Okay, and so let's see here. Looks like Dr. Cossack is looting the Eblin Cave, or Eblin Castle, for more gear and some levels, fighting those chests right now, fighting the 4 Skull and Staleman fight.
There's got to be a feeling of desperation. You know, you've seen a couple people finish. You know your levels are low. Where can you go to find that special piece of equipment? You know, or do you just say, you know, I got to go right to the moon and start plugging down random encounters?
Yeah,
it's
and
kind of a hard shuffle.
And it looks like that's what Kate's is doing. We see fighting the King Ryu fights down there in the lunar subterrane, where because those are going to be worth a lot more experience than, say, the Stalemate Skull fight. Maybe climbing Mount Ordeals. Maybe looking for that pink tail.
It's going to be interesting to see who, aside from Kate Sith, goes to that moon first. Because, I mean, Snape D and Dr. C were so close they could taste it. And all it takes is for one of them to get those levels.
Yeah, but I think with, like, in Snape D's situations, might be thinking that the it's not the levels, it's the equipment, and it's just hoping for that pink tail to give the boost.
That is a fair call. I mean, we know that there's no adamants to be found so far, at least. So I could see why people would be scrambling desperately just for that extra little boost. I mean, adamant's not gonna prevent big bangs, but it might help with the grinding.
Yeah, it's good on all fronts, really. Like, it makes Zeromus so much easier when you've got it out of it.
It looks
Luckily,
like Dr. C is making the dive into the lunar subterranean, presumably gonna start going after the random encounters.
Or might be checking might be fighting the bosses. We'll see. Nope, encounters on. And Kate Sith gets a decent random fight with one King Ryu, one Jing Ryu. Not quite as good as the 2 King Ryus, but it's pretty close.
Well, at the point the HP values are, any battle is going to get you to that safety point, and you definitely need every bit of experience you can get.
I mean, technically, I guess you could grind imps outside Baron Castle, but that might take a bit long.
I probably wouldn't recommend that strategy. At least unless you were going for the YOLO strat of getting from 1 to 99 purely on imps.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a long grind.
You know, sometimes you gotta do those long strats just to make sure that everything's gonna be okay. But normally in a race setting, probably not for the best.
Looks like Dr. Cossack is also fighting that red D, blue D fight that we saw Silverfire take on earlier.
Scarlet Kitty saying, Imp grind is the new clapper grind. Couldn't agree more. I think for Smapey, he's going to want to get to the moon as soon as possible. I know hindsight, you can't really argue with it, but I think every minute he's spending on Earth is going to hurt his final time.
And remember, of our 4 featured runners, Smapey was the first to go with the crystal and the darkness crystal.
It just goes to show you, things can change in these races on a drop of a dime. All it takes is for somebody to look somewhere when somebody else looked somewhere else.
And we do have a 5th place finisher. Neon Gray finished in 5th place at a time of 2 hours, 1 minute, 22 seconds. So GG to Neon Gray.
Very much GG's. Like, finishing in the top 5 in any community race on its own, very difficult. But to finish top 5 with these flags, that's got to be a pat on the back, you know? Looks like Dr. C is going to start hitting up the moon bosses. Probably a good idea just for the amount of experience you're going to get, although it's going to be harder fights.
And you see Smapey is just looking for more gear, going into armor shops, looking for anything to improve that magic defense, to be a little bit more survivable against those big bangs.
It almost makes you wonder if he's hunting around for these magic defense items. Is perhaps he going to skip the grind and just see if he can't outlast Zeromus a bit, which probably not something I'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he must be thinking, but I think grinding is probably just the best. See, going to Kokel's just for the treasures, trying to find that elusive adamant armor.
Yeah, you could have all the defense in the world. If you get an unnerfed Big Bang, you're dying. No ifs, ands, or buts.
At these HP levels, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
You know, if Smapey at Silver's levels, then that extra magic defense could potentially make an unnerfed Big Bang a lot more survivable. So
Absolutely.
But you don't have those HP values at this point, so that's a lot tougher.
And the question is, how long is it going to be before Smapey goes for that grind or just says, I'm going to go for Zeromus again? All that time that you're using to get items, Kate, Sith, and Dr. C are finishing their grind up,
Exactly. That's the thing. And I'm sure Smapey knows that there have been people who have finished. So I think some people, and I'm not accusing Smapey of doing this right now, I think there's some people who might see somebody finish and then a couple, first place, and you're like, okay, that's fine, somebody finished. And then second, third, fourth place, and you're like, I thought I was in a good position. Uh-oh. They might panic a little bit. Now, maybe that's happening, maybe not, I don't know. But I think that can happen.
I think you also run into the opposite of that, where some folk won't have the chat even open until they're typing in .done, just so they don't get shooken by seeing somebody .done.
Sure, that's a possibility too. Oh, and we do see Smeepty heading into the Assure Leviathan spots, and does see it looks like the Dark Imps are one of the fights here, and that's relatively free. So healing up, and looks like they're going to be taking that one on here.
And you have the hourglasses, you might as well get the free experience drops. Not going to be as good as the moon stuff, I don't think, but it could get you in a better position for it. That being said, these are fast enemies, so it is a little dangerous all the same. But it looks like you got the hourglass off.
Speaking of dangerous, Dr. Cossack fighting 2 red Ds. One of the most difficult encounters in the game is the double red dragon fight.
Which,
yeah,
it's looking like it's going to be a wipe, unfortunate. Oh, it looks like Dr. C has forfeited from the race. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, came up with against a wall that Zeramus was tough, and then just doing the grind and seeing those 2 red Ds, gave up whatever 8 grind was done prior to that before the last save, and just decides that's going to be it for tonight.
Yeah, I can't stress how difficult just having Edward could be. I mean, you got to look at it in the sense of it's been 2 hours. Will it be 2 more? You know, sometimes it's sad, but you got to cut and run. I mean, sometimes you go and you look in the chat afterwards, you see the strategy that would have saved you, but it's too late, you know? Hindsight 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation overall, I've got to agree. But we do have a 6th place finisher. Ovak Jam finished at 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 49 seconds. So GG's to Ovak Jam.
Very nice. And looks like Smeepty has completed the Imps fight and gets a strength ring for his troubles.
That's unfortunate, since Eddie can't equip the strength ring.
And he exits right on out. Can't blame him. At least I wouldn't try to fight Bagan with this party.
Yeah, in that Assure spot, that could be difficult.
And Katesit's still working on the grind. I would assume not too far off of being finished. Yeah, she's at 1600. Only probably needs a couple more. Unless, of course, you know, you don't feel comfortable till you get over that 2000 hurdle. That might cause you to go a little bit further. Plus, there's always the legendary Edward at level 70.
Well, 70 is a very large number for a level in this game.
I would imagine most runners won't go that high, but that is when Edward starts really ramping up, so it's rarely seen, but when you see it, oh, magnificence. Yeah, it looks like Smeepty's going for it. Didn't really get much in the way of levels, so hopefully that extra gear is just enough to push him ahead. We're going to ask if Dr. C is willing to pop in here for an interview, but considering the circumstances, I think I would understand if he turned us down.
So what Katesit's doing right now with the just grinding these fights right outside that last save point room Um, that's I did one practice seed, and that's what I did for my grind. It took a while. It was not a fast grind by any stretch of the imagination, but especially this King Ryu Jinryu fight does give quite a bit of experience, so it's not necessarily a bad choice. And it looks like Smapty is heading in to rescue one of the ditched Edwards, and might be going for that 14 agility strategy.
It's not a bad strategy. Unfortunately, it looks like Dr. C has turned down our offer for an interview. I understand, but at the same time, Dr. C, don't get discouraged. Could have happened to anybody. I think you did very well for what we got to see of you.
Yeah, and thank you for being one of our featured runners tonight. Much appreciated. So yeah, now it's going to be interesting to see what Smapty's going to do now that he's got a level 5 Edward in his party.
I mean, if you're trying to avoid the grind, I mean, he's at level 50, so I mean, he's in a better position than he was. But that little agility boost might be enough. Meanwhile, Kate Sith is very close to the 2,000 hit point mark. So
yeah, and he's also killed off the Edward in the middle. Looks like he found a number, the agility that he wants to work with as the anchor, and is just grinding up everybody else. So it looks like the other Edwards are actually going to have a higher speed level than Silver did, but is not going to have all 5 at that high.
Nah. I think of the 2 fights, I would at least predict Kate Sith's fight is going to be a bit smoother, but things can go wrong, so it's not guaranteed.
Well, that sneaky tricker. I think Kate Sith did the right decision and just ran away from that fight. I think it takes too long to kill for not as much experience as this fight, the King Ryu Jinryu fight.
Although, I have to recommend to anybody who runs across that fight, do what he says, cast lightning on him, and get a prize worth seeing at least once.
Yeah, you might want to save before you do that. Just saying.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Smapty going for it again now, so we'll see how the extra gear pans out for him.
Oh yeah, Silverfire, your fight went really. I think what JDP was talking about was the Smapty's fight versus Kate Sith's fight.
Yes. But like I said, luck does play a part in these fights. You could have decent amounts of health, but it still goes wrong versus somebody else just hitting all their marks, nerfing every big bang. So it'll be interesting to see if this is enough for Smapty to push past.
Okay, now Smapty taking another pass at Krang here. I can't wait to see Krang again. I'm just tickled.
Now, I'm sure Scala will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the sprite from TMNT 4 Turtles in Time. Which, if you haven't tried that game, very fun.
All right, let's see how Smapty does this time. Those counter nukes are still going to be brutal for him.
Yeah, they're going to be, I think, pretty much one-shot kills every time. So anytime you're using a nerf, you got to be prepared to get somebody back up as soon as possible.
Might be going, honestly, this might be a, Zerk Spoon on the top, Edward, and everybody else is on Chemistry.
I mean, it's not a bad strategy, all things considered. Especially if, you're not comfortable with your Big Bang nerfing every time, and you just got to make sure, worst case scenario, you're keeping that one person up. especially since that particular Edward does have a smidgen more health than everybody else. Also, another bold strategy with hiding one of the Edwards in case something does go wrong, so you can sneak out and try to get that revive off. Looks like doing that with 2 of the Edwards, actually.
If I'm not mistaken, this Big Bang's going to be unnerved. Yeah, that took...
I mean, the hiding could be a good strategy, but in the time it takes to unhide, get the item, wait to use it, heal everybody up, it might be too much time and you're just going to get hit again.
Yeah, and there's another shake from Zeromus right there.
I think this is going to go questionably, and there's the Big Bang. Did manage to hide one of them, though, so he can at least keep trying to do the cycle until it pays off, if it pays off. Missed the virus cast, though, so that's definitely a good thing to see. And I think, while it's a good idea on paper, I think it just takes too much time to prepare, and by the time you heal up everybody, you're just going to be repeating the same circle over and over again until you just give up and try again.
Yeah, right now,
Kate,
looks like Smith just treading water in this fight is what it appears to be.
I mean, sometimes you can pull yourself out of the hole, but it's going to be a tough fight to do that. And I think that, yep, there's the reset. Unfortunate. Meanwhile, Katesit's levels, I think, are good enough to where I would go for it. But I can understand, if you're not comfortable, Edward, why you might want to go as high as you possibly can. Especially with only 6 people finishing so far. You know, it gives the impression that everybody is a little bit nervous about that Zeromus fight.
Or they're running into problems in it like Smapty is.
Also highly probable. Smapty's credit, he's giving it another go rather than giving up and going for the grind. And all you can really do is wish him the best of luck. I mean, if somebody can pull off an early hit point value Zeromus fight, you gotta give him props, because that is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And I think, looking at the levels that Katesip has, I think he's going for the level 70 Edward. So, good news, everybody. We get to see strong like Hulk Edward. Always a treat to see level 70 Edward.
And when we were doing the interview with Silverfire, they said that they didn't want to have the 14 agility anchor Edward in the middle here, that Smapty has opted for here. And that might be, that relative agility might be what's biting, because it seems like this Zeromus is pretty quick here.
Well, that begs the question, you know, is it worth leveling that Edward, or can you throw a curse string on him, you know? I think the biggest problem is probably the HP levels, but there might be some value in going back and getting the other Edward he left behind.
Well, I think with the slingshot, it wouldn't matter too much. Like, it wouldn't take too long for that Edward to be at least somewhat near.
But that implies that Smapty is willing to do a grind at all, which so far he seems heavily against it.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think the other thing is, um, I think Smapty should be looking to nerf other big bangs, and by keeping the Edwards hidden, like they'll only get the one command to show and won't be able to get the attack item or whatever item they're going to use, like the silk web or whatever.
And we have a 7th place finisher, Dragus, finishing with a time of 2:19:47. So GG's Dragus.
Oh, we might be denied it because it looks like Kate Sith just turned random encounters off at level 69.
Ooh. Kate Sith with the troll, trolling everybody watching at the same time. No, he's going back for it, I think. Oh no, he's saving. I missaw. You know what? I gotta respect the troll.
Well, a heal though, maybe there is grinding to be done.
Oh, going for a boss. Threw us off there for a second, and we've got another finisher. Rumblefish82 has an 8th place finish with 2:21:05. So GG's Rumblefish. It's looking like things not going super well on Smapey's end. Still having the one hidden Edward. Oh, and I think that nuke's gonna finish it off.
I agree.
Unfortunate. But he's going right in it again. I mean, you gotta give him points for persistence. He believes that he can get through this, and, he very much may be able to. But it's definitely not going to be an easy fight.
Oh, they grinded. They got that level, so now we have level 70 Edward for you.
Here's the dream. This is where everybody tells me Edward really gets strong. So hold on to your hats. We're going to see, instead of 1,700 damage, we're going to get 1,710 damage.
Fighting another boss.
Maybe they're going for level 99 Edward. A bold strategy, but we'll see if it pays off.
Well, I don't think Pale Dim is going to be extremely difficult in this
absolutely not.
spot.
But I think at this point, any minute Kate Sith isn't going for Zeromus, that's just time lost. Looking at HP values, I think they're really good to go. But again, Edward, not many people like to use Edward, so I can understand some hesitance to go in too early. I think Edward probably gets the worst rep of almost everybody in the game, aside from maybe DK Cecil. Interesting. Exiting rather than just going down and heading to Zeromus outright. I gotta wonder what Kate Sith has in mind, because if you're just going to turn in the pass, although if you are expecting to wipe, saving outside of Troya just to have a quicker turnover could be a good idea.
Yeah, and see flying the big whale itself, so it looks like going right to Troy.
Again, I don't think that was necessarily necessary. But I understand the logic behind it, and, you might as well. And I think you berserk that level 70 Edward with the spoon, and you have at least one person playing chemist, job's done. That's my opinion, anyway.
I think Snapey had an input accident on this run. Got a cure 3 off, but targeted the one with full health instead of the one with low health. Just an accident. And I don't know, I don't know about anybody else, but these menus are very finicky in this game. I slide
think it
over
happens to
all the
everyone.
time. Like I'm trying to hit Yang on with a pan, and I just tap to the right once, and the arrow moves twice.
Ooh, reset. I think something that also has to be considered is, when you've wiped a few times, you're going to start getting that frustration level, and you're going to start rushing through commands, which in turn frustrates you more.
That could definitely have something to do with it too. So now Snapey flying around, trying to think, what am I going to do next?
It looks like he's maybe... Oh, I thought he might have been going to the moon, but not quite yet.
Might be
going...
rescue.
Yeah, might be exchanging that lower level for the higher level one. Meanwhile, Kate Sith finally starting his fight with Zeromus. I have to imagine it will go smoothly, but things can go wrong. It's not guaranteed.
So many Edwards.
There we go. Found the right one, finally. Now the question is, will Zeromus be slower or faster, having gotten rid of that level 1 character? And if it is slower, is it slower enough to make up for the relatively low hit point values? It's also using a hide one strategy. Sure. We found that it's not as useful as you would think on paper, but I mean, with higher hit point values, you might have a better chance of getting everybody back up. Is going to value at Cave Bahamut first, and it's curious to see what he might have in mind. On the one hand,
might be that hunt for the Artem or the possible adamant armor again.
It's either that or he's thinking, we got to start killing bosses to get this experience. Let's start with this one, which, I mean, it's out of the way, so maybe not the best first choice, but at the same time, you could turn on encounters and fight behemoths if you're bold enough. Which, not sure I'd go for that one either.
There are some parties where I think that might not be, but I don't know about the Edward party behemoth fight.
Ooh, Cagnazo. Could be a rough fight, but if they still have the lit arrows, might not be so bad. I'm definitely seeing work being done on Kate Sith's screen. Spoon Edward, gonna hit hard. You get a critical attack with that Artemis bow, definitely gonna hit really hard. It wouldn't surprise me to see this fight wrap up pretty quickly.
Yeah, these eddies are really pumping out the damage right now.
Meanwhile, Snapedy's not having much better luck with this Kainazo.
Yeah, that's a pretty nasty spot to meet Kainazo at.
Yeah, I think obviously again, hindsight's 2020. We get to see what he can't. But if it were me, I think I would have gone just for normal encounters. Get everybody up to the point where they could maybe survive a boss fight.
Yeah, I think at this point regular fights are gonna probably be Snapedy's best bet.
But I mean, Snapedy is still going strong. We're at 2 hours and a half. You know, if I was wiping so many times in a row, I would probably have considered ducking out at this point, but still going strong. So you got to respect it. He's got a plan. He's sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of this is like just especially when you're first learning a new flag set like this, just learning like what's going to work for you, what you need to do in order to complete a flag set like this. Like, am I going to be able to use this hide strategy in there? And I think Snapedy is learning that if they're going to be able to do that, they're going to have to practice it more.
And we've got Kate Sith with the 9th place finish at 2:31.22. GG's, Kate Sith. Come on in if you want. We'll be waiting.
Okay, and with that, I'm gonna thank everybody for watching tonight. We're actually gonna go ahead and host Snapedy and root him on for the rest of it there. I want to thank all of our featured runners for letting us watch you tonight. Much appreciated. And for our tracker, PMA KFAL, our restreamer Demarin2, and my co-commentator JDP, and everybody at the Randomania Network. I'm Rex Raoul, and I want to thank everybody for watching.
Have a good night.